Seems fair to me. Well, if you don't know what fair is, you can't make it.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.
Hey, thanks so much for joining us for another edition of Donnybrook. We're going to get into the conversation in just a moment, but first we want to thank our friends at the Gatesworth for making this program possible, as you do week in and week out. Regular panel seated around the big green table for this edition, starting with the media veteran herself, Wendy Wiese, along with Mr. Bill McClellan from the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. He's Ray Hartmann from St. Louis Magazine. And from the St. Louis American and STLMag.com, the one and only Alvin Reid. Well, I hate to say you told us so, but you did tell us so, I think, Ray Hartmann, when you said that Claire McCaskill would not vote for Brett Kavanaugh, and the senator from Missouri today, who is running for re-election against Josh Hawley, the Attorney General for the state, she announced that she's not going to vote for Judge Kavanaugh. What do you make of this?
Well, I think she made the right decision, and I think she made it for the right reason. I mean, the one she cited, which is among many you could cite, which is perfect for Missouri, both politically and substantively, is that one of the things Judge Kavanaugh is in love with and has been as a judge in his judicial record has been in support of dark money. If any people in any state ought to be concerned about dark money, the state of Eric Greitens is one of them. So that was her stated reason. I personally think a better reason is that we are talking about, in the similar vein, judicially, he's a complete advocate of almost unlimited presidential power, and he's being nominated by an unindicted co-conspirator whose case he might hear. So you could add that one, but I think she's on very firm ground and did the right thing.
I honestly think that Claire would have voted to confirm him until these latest, you like to say, that they bring up the dark money past, also the allegations from this woman who he did something to her, maybe he didn't, back in high school. I think it gave her the chance to say, like, hey, I've got solid reasons to not vote for him, other than people just say, like, well, he's going to overturn or help overturn abortion or other conservative leanings. I think that takes that off the table for her, and I think it's a shrewd political move. But I really do think she would have confirmed it.
In a red state, you're absolutely right. It is a shrewd political move, because I think there are a lot of women who, believe it or not, are either on the center line or right of center, who have supported Claire in the past. So she gets to be part of the witch hunt without actually picking up a torch, because that's how a lot of people are seeing these last-minute allegations that were known as far back as July when it comes to the Senate Judiciary Committee. The woman, her testimony, she has until 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, right, to decide whether or not she's going to testify before the House Judiciary on Monday. Christina King Miranda told Nina Totenberg of National Public Radio that, this woman has walked her original statement defending Blasey Ford back so far, she's practically fallen off the continental United States.
Okay, that's what we're going to talk about next. Getting into those allegations going back to the high school days. But if you don't mind, can we get back to dark money and Claire McCaskill for just a moment? Because I want to disagree with you a little bit, Ray, when you said that dark money should be pertinent to, the residents of Missouri with Eric Greitens and everything. And there is some truth to that. We're talking about 501c4s, which can contribute to campaigns, although their donations are not tax deductible, and they don't have to reveal their donors. But that was exactly how the ACLU supported Wesley Bell against Robert McCullough in the most recent primary, and the Sierra Club does that as well. So it's not just Republican groups.
Does it matter that it was actually a 501c3?
I think you could make a case I wouldn't begrudge people that raise their eyebrows about that. In other words, I didn't say both sides are wrong. I do think that dark money in politics is a big problem. And I do
Actually,
wanna
you know
say
what?
this.
At Channel
We
9
always, every time we talk about Claire McCaskill, and I'll say this, I happen to like Roy Blunt personally. I think between Roy Blunt and Claire McCaskill, we actually have two senators who more than occasionally vote their conscience. And every time we talk about it, well, she would, I disagree with you completely that she would have ever voted for Kavanaugh. And I actually believe,
I don't think
as
she
a
could have.
matter of conscience, she doesn't think he's the right choice for Supreme
I
Court.
think she would
That
say
is a
no, this
possibility.
changed her mind.
I
I
don't-
think she would admit that this changed her mind.
What changed your mind?
That she was ready to vote for him until this latest.
I don't know.
No,
cascade.
she wouldn't.
I kind of agree
She
with Ray.
didn't.
She would have gone against so many of her grassroots
Right.
supporters by voting for
But
Kavanaugh.
again, she
This
also,
is-
it says,
Listen to what
This
I'm
is
saying.
the Isn't all
what I'm
politics.
saying is that I think Claire McCaskill would say that she was going to vote for him until.
Okay.
Why do you
Now-
think she's senator? Because
Hey,
she's smart.
Now
That's
let's move on to the
exactly
next
right.
one. But I do want to make a plug, and that is that earlier this week on the 9 network of public media Commons outside at 3655 Olive, we had a big showing of the documentary Dark Money by Kimberly Reid. And maybe Claire McCaskill learned about that. And it's going to be seen on all the PBS stations, including this one, starting October the 1st. So, Bill McClellan, I want to ask you about overall these allegations about Brett Kavanaugh and his high school days. The allegations are that he sexually assaulted a 15-year-old when he was 17. And honestly, Bill, I cannot think of another case in American politics when a person, man or woman, running for office or being appointed was ever judged by his or her behavior in high school. Can you?
Well, no. And I don't like Brett Kavanaugh for a number of reasons. You know, I'm opposed to him. I'd vote against him just because I'm a good liberal, and I thought he was a partisan with Ken Starr and everything. But I find the whole thing of high school behavior being held against somebody as very troubling. It's great theater, and I hope that his accuser testifies, and he testifies, and it'll be must-watch TV. But I don't think the idea of some teenage high school boy doing what he's alleged to have done is really earth-shattering, or the sort of thing that I go, oh my gosh, he's unfit for, that's just being a high school boy. And I'm one of the few who probably didn't do anything like that. So I'm safe.
And I'm thinking there are several Supreme Court justices who are already
many
sitting on
high
them.
school boys, not knowing what they were doing, fumbled around with girls.
My thought is this. What if he didn't do it? And what if I believe that she's telling the truth? But what if he didn't do it? And if he didn't do it, now you got to defend something that maybe didn't happen when you were 17 years old. If any of us were put in that situation, you could just throw your hands
Alvin, the
up.
other thing that's so
Hey.
crazy about it is his one defender who came out and said, she said I was there. Turns out to have written a book about being drunk in high school.
Right.
And how would you feel if, oh no, my defender, I read his book called Wasted. It's just too much for me.
I think that if he in fact committed an attempted sexual assault, I think if you believe, after hearing it, and I'm not saying he did, we haven't even heard from him, I haven't seen her. If you believe that he committed an attempted sexual assault as a 17-year-old, that could be disqualifying to be a Supreme Court
Well, that's a
justice.
pretty loose definition of sexual
Yeah,
assault.
and I'm just
right?
saying, like, if somebody said you
I
did
said,
this when you were
here's the deal.
17,
The one
Ray,
thing I think
what
that-
could you do?
And by the way,
I mean, what
by the
could you
way,
possibly
this
do?
pendulum swings both genders.
of course it does.
Equally, really
does.
stupid at the age of 17. I'm not speaking personally, of course, just from experience. that
Listen,
I've had with other
let me
people.
finish the sentence. I think we're going to have a process. I do think that it would make much more sense for to have a reasonable, prompt FBI investigation, because if there's no there,
The FBI
let me
has
finish.
said this is so far out
No,
of
the
their
FBI has not
wheelhouse.
said. No, that Donald
Yes,
Trump
they-
said that about
No,
the FBI.
they actually have.
Okay.
This doesn't rise to federal crime.
Excuse me. When you're talking about a nominee for Supreme Court who routinely the FBI vets nominees for judgeships. The idea that the FBI would look at it, to me, would be very exonerating for Mr. Kavanaugh if the FBI investigated this and
I'm
had
sure
no
they
information.
can pull it together in 72 hours.
I do think it would be.
One
Let
thing,
me add
the one
one
side's
thing.
going to say that's nonsense. If he says the other side will say it's nonsense.
As Susan, if you look at it, if you look at the,
No.
go ahead.
I just, my 40th high school reunion was this summer. All right.
boy.
I was 17 when I graduated. All right. Now, great time, all that. But just looking around at all of us, if anybody came and said, like, hey, you did something and blah, blah, blah in, 1978, you're thinking, like, how, FBI or not, you're going to go interview all these chowder heads that I was just out here with 40 years
there's one
later and
other
say, oh,
thing,
he did it, he
Charlie.
didn't do it.
Yeah.
If he were
One other
35 in these allegations, or even 28 or whatever,
Maybe.
that's a different
First
story.
of all, okay, I'll be the only one that thinks it shouldn't be no harm, no foul. But more important, if people listen to her, which they're apparently going to, or see her, and listen to him, and come to the conclusion as a senator that she's more believable than he is. Now the question of, is he telling the truth, and not as a 17-year-old, but is he telling the truth today? And so, and I think it was Susan Collins said, if she was convinced he was lying today about what happened, that would go to his character today.
I'll tell you what
so
the
that's a
thing
different
is-
level.
We do have a judicial system that says that when you do things when you're young, that shouldn't reflect on your entire career, shouldn't ruin your life. And that's why often these records are expunged or whatever when you become 21 or whatever. We also know the brain isn't fully developed till age 26. Kids do crazy things, but we also know that after 35 years, witnesses die, memories fade, evidence is gone. How do you conduct a decent investigation, whether you're the FBI or anybody, 3.5 decades later?
Exactly. And the same people on the same side who call Juanita Broderick, a crazy lunatic because of her allegations about the one-time president, are the same ones who are wanting to run this guy
I
as
think there should be- I
don't think
something he
there's-
allegedly done.
One thing that's lost in this
did after a
country
pony
is
keg.
empathy for people. And this is not a Democrat Republican. This is just like, dude, if somebody said you did something when you were 17 years old, there wouldn't be anything you could do except say, I didn't do it.
Wendy,
But it's a blood sport now.
Well, I think that what he supposedly did would actually meet the definition of attempted rape. I don't think that's not nothing. I don't think that's not.
I will say,
anything.
to Bill's point, I kind of disagree with you, Bill, because I don't think that boys should be fumbling with girls.
If he did it.
But 17-year-old boys used to do that,
Excuse me.
Charlie. Then not forcibly or holding your hand over their mouth or
right.
anything. But it doesn't seem to me like it rises to the level of something that, he shouldn't
And
be
Wendy,
a
to
judge.
Let's move on.
Wendy's point, one thing.
We're a little
though,
behind schedule.
We agree that
Okay.
partisan hypocrisy is there, but the same people that are in such a rush to do this sat on Merrick Garland for a full year. But this is a big hurdle.
Oh, that's
Harry
okay.
Reid.
Let's move on. Only in the interest of time. You appreciate all the comments. They're all great. Alvin Reid, I want to ask you about Proposition B, which the St. Louis American endorsed. It would increase the minimum wage for the state of Missouri to $12. Currently, it's $7.85 in Missouri by the year 2023, 5 years from now. And I want people to make more money, but what if it results in a recession of fewer hours that people will get or fewer jobs?
Well, I've always been one to say, like, hey, let's raise people's salaries and see where it goes from there. Because one thing that we do know is prices are going to go up and the cost of living is going to go up. So you can't stay at the same level of earning and accomplish anything as each year goes by. So I think that's reasonable. I never was like a $15 an hour tomorrow person. I thought that was unfair to businesses. But 2023, we're talking 5 years down the line, and 5 years down the line, if somebody's making $12 an hour, they're going to be so far behind, skilled workers and people who are above minimum wage already. So I think that's fair. I can get with that. All right. I think 15 was, we want $15 tomorrow, and that's not fair. But I'm with this. I think it's a gradual incline, and I think that works fine.
I agree, except I think you could argue, I agree with the American, and I think that people should vote for it, but I also think you could make the case that it's could be higher, and I agree with you. When I first said $15 an hour here overnight, I understood you've got to look at $15 an hour and hear what it means versus New York City or San Francisco or different places that have a higher cost of living. But, and I agree that for supporting this, but if anything, it's not high enough. I think it's not. This is something very gradual and very reasonable.
Even for teens, do you think there could be a
Yes.
separate wage for teens who may not have the skills of an adult and are kind of getting a training wage?
Well, back in the day, back again, let's go back to when I was not being
40
accused.
years ago, you graduated high school.
When I was not being accused of anything. No, when you worked like Burger King, we made minimum wage, and like people who weren't teens, they made a higher salary. So any business could say like, hey, you're an adult, you've worked here a certain number of years, you make $15 an hour, and the teenagers
right, they were
make $12 an hour.
managers or they were assistant
So
managers.
that could be handled without reducing the pay scale for those who have reached
Good
that
enough.
$12
All right, let's
level.
go to the next topic with you, Wendy Wiese. I want to ask you about Metro and the St. Louis County Council, which did something we've never seen before. They decided to withhold money from the Metro by state because they're dissatisfied with Metro's progress on fighting crime. It was about 15, 16 months ago that Vince Schamel on the Metro board was kind of sparring with Steve Stenger, the county executive. John Belmar, the chief of police for the county, says we've only had 39 major crimes, which is about one a week on Metro. But right now, there's been reporting in the Post-Dispatch, KMOX, and elsewhere that to this day, the police officers who patrol Metro don't have radios that communicate with the county and the city and St. Clair County. It's kind of a mess. So do you think that the county council was doing the right thing by disrupting the system by withholding money?
I can certainly see the logic behind that decision, but I think when you have a transit system that is already in crisis, and I think it's safe to say that Metrolink is in crisis. Ridership is down. People do not feel safe. People who normally would have become regular clients, customers, are not. They're not doing it. They're finding alternatives. They're not using Metrolink. So. John Nations, the outgoing executive director, he wrote a letter to the county council or in response to the county council and said that this is going to absolutely have an impact on ridership, on the way they're able to do business. And I just don't think at this particular juncture that's a great thing.
I agree with you. I disagree with you, Wendy, and I disagree with John Nations. I think that the urgency to do something, the only way you can get something done is to withhold the money, then do it. And get these people in a room and say, straighten this out or you're not getting any money. I have a friend, Sergeant John Schickendance, retired now, who used to work security on Metrolink. And I asked Schick, I said, what do you think? And he agreed with me. They should do something now.
But I gotta say, I'm sorry, but I seldom has a founder made an argument less meritorious than that one. I think this is breathtaking, symbolically and substantively in its stupidity. At a time where we're all as a community, white, black, city, county, all over the metro area, so concerned about crime. For the county council to do this, speaks to the fact that it has, whatever you think of Steve Stenger and all the arguments back and forth, it has emerged as the most dysfunctional and irresponsible body
Petulant.
of all time.
That's saying a lot. I don't think so. That's
Nothing will
ridiculous.
get done.
And John Nations has done a good job, by the way, as far as I'm concerned.
If we go along with John Nations and Wendy
done it.
and you on this and say, okay, let's fix the problem sometime, sometime we'll drag
No,
out,
you're
drag
right.
out,
It's
drag out.
absolutely,
I gotta hear you.
better
He speaks
to
the
cripple
truth.
Right.
Metrolink.
Yeah,
It's
that's gonna
absolutely
really
better to
solve
cripple
crime.
Well,
the transit
it's gonna
system
help us fight crime.
and keep people off it forever.
Right.
Come on.
But
Well,
as long as we
as
made
a
our
guy,
point.
No, wait. As a guy who sat here and said, like, regardless of the problems, they need to steam forward with the north-south, the new route for Metrolink, spend the $800 million on that, then I'm kind of hard-pressed to say, like, oh, yeah, hold their money for security. Give them their money. Let them try to protect the people until you find out what's going on. But I don't think this holding people's feet to the financial fires, that's not necessarily a good thing
But
right
there's
now.
arteriosclerosis in the system. Nothing's improving. In fact,
And it's
in
gonna
his
be
recent
made-
remarks, John Belmar said, look, the city of St. Louis doesn't have enough police officers on the trains.
So-
and then,
so-
and
So
it's
spending
just-
less money
Yeah.
on security is the
You
solution.
got to force
you-
people, like Bill says, to
Right.
get in
If
a
you-
room and hammer out a solution
If you
because
have a
they're
cardiac
putting it off.
patient, if you have a cardiac patient, do you withhold the medication?
Yes.
I mean, that's just
Thank you.
that
Well,
doesn't
Charlie,
make any
what
sense.
room?
But if
What
you have,
room?
let's say, somebody who's obese, you keep feeding them. I mean, that's what you're
Charlie,
doing.
What room are you talking about? What people getting in that are going to solve a problem
Okay.
that is decades
The
and
head of
sociologically
by
in the
state, the
making?
mayor, the county executive, and the
The
county
problem
executive for St.
isn't-
Clair
Chiefs should
County.
say,
The
okay, we
crime
got to be
prob-
able to communicate.
The crime
lock 'em
problem
in a
on
room.
Metrolink is not a problem of
We're
governance.
not really talking about the crime problem. We're talking about getting people to work together, right?
Well, I hear that, but like, how about they have
Across
their own?
multi-jurisdictional-
Metro should have its own police department.
Oh, and the
Well,
county,
that-
said
the
that
county
before.
doesn't
the
recognize
county
that.
well, that's
council,
where
the idea,
wrong. Should not.
the idea of
Okay.
the county
You're
council
wrong.
is going to bring
Okay,
people
hey, I
This
wanna,
is the little
give us
thief
time
dumps.
because this next topic is
unbelievable.
really interesting, and Bill knows a lot about it. There are 6 guys who ran into a home with AK-47. Some had them, some didn't, Bill. And this is a couple of years ago. Teens, actually, from West St. Louis County high schools. They lived in places like Town and Country and Baldwin, blah, blah, blah. Some of them did. Some lived in the city. There were 6 defendants in all. And I guess it was an armed robbery, right? Well, they're on these charges. Turns out that they were found guilty, but they got probation after going into a home with AK-47s. What the heck happened?
Well, first of all, they pleaded guilty, Charlie. They didn't go to trial. And I have supported Bob McCullough through many controversies, including Ferguson. But this one I thought is a bridge too far. 6 fellas, 6 young men robbing a marijuana stash, 2 of them with AK-47s and 1 with a pistol. And they made this deal where they don't even have records now. You know, if they suspended imposition of sentence, and so if they complete their probation, they won't even have records. Nobody will do a day in prison for a very serious matter. And the official version is that, well, there's credibility problems with the witnesses, you know, because they were dealing dope. And there's always credibility problems with witnesses, you know, because often crimes are people on the margins of society are shooting or robbing people who are also on the margins of society. And there were 6 kids and there were 3 weapons. It would have been very easy, I suspect, to flip a couple of the kids, and there's you take care of the credibility problems. You've got a couple of the robbers doing it, and you know, 4 of these kids are from West County, and they have money, and 2 of them were city students on the DSEG program. And the message is, you know, if you're rich and white, you're going to get a nice deal, and if you're black, you better commit a crime in the county with some white friends. I mean, I just thought this was a
I
terrible
agree
deal.
because
Something
that's
doesn't
what I
smell
think
right.
happened. I think that they saw that freight train was headed at them 2 kids from the city. They said, like, man, 4 white kids walk out of here
Well,
not
it's-
guilty.
but one of the kids from the West County was black.
All right, but I said, like, if 4 white kids walk out of here not guilty and 2 black kids end up guilty.
There were 3 and 3.
Three and
It
three.
was
I'm
a
sorry.
Brady Bunch.
3 and 3.
Right.
I said, like, hey, if it does not come out evenly, then it's going to be trouble
who had the
yet
AK-47?
again. Well, but I'm just saying that it didn't matter.
First of all,
I think that McCullough decided, you know what, they all get probation because I see where this is headed, and I'm heading off at
Well,
the pass.
I think you're giving McCullough too much credit on
Okay.
that. I mean, I think that they were giving these rich kids a real break.
Well, and I
they
got to
got
tell you
one.
something. The first thing I did when I saw this story, I said, thank goodness that Wesley Bell, the incoming prosecuting attorney, didn't do this, because you would have had the biggest
Absolutely.
firestorm in history.
You're right.
If Wesley Bell did this, or presumably
No,
our
if
next
he let
prosecuting
these
attorney-
affluent white kids skate, I don't think it would have
but
been
even,
all
right,
that.
But if
right.
any
Well,
black
that's
kid
an angle,
skated,
too.
Right.
come on now. But the point is this, that I'm customarily saying, well, you know, I'm always
Free
being
'em.
accused of being soft. This is one of the more outrageous acts of really not the prosecutor not doing his job. I mean, we're talking AK-47s, and it'd be bad enough that they, even without somebody flipping, they should have prosecuted him. And if they didn't, if they were going to not prosecute him because of a guilty plea, the idea that it's actually expunged.
But we
is-
can't be surprised.
you know,
but we-
maybe the
it's
parents
crazy.
are going to put him on timeout.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'll do
Or
it.
grounded for 2
don't you
weeks.
remember-
I mean, this. I thought this was ridiculous.
it is.
But at the
Isn't
same
the
time,
judge now? All right,
And the judge is at fault too. I don't
Right.
think the judge should have accepted a plea
That's
where
what I
these
was
kids
saying.
are going to
Who
end up
was the
without
judge
justice.
in this case?
Warner.
But
John
this is
Warner.
this is the same group of youngsters. Okay, now they're youngsters. They're not thugs. They're youngsters because they went to Parkway West. But and I'm
Keep
being
Parkway
Yeah, I know.
I'm
I know
being
what you're saying.
facetious.
Keep Parkway out
I'm
of
being
this.
facetious. This was the same kid who, 2 weeks after the crime, had his attorney approach the judge or the court about Texas A&M.
He had to go to
Remember?
his college
He had to
visit.
go to
He
his
was
college.
in
I mean, so this really shouldn't be too
This
much
is
of a
the same
shock.
point.
panel that thought attempted rape by a 17-year-old isn't.
Well, hey, let me tell you what.
If he had had an AK-47,
You know, if you
Oh!
notice,
So
Ray
he-
has suddenly become really tough on crime
have.
between Kavanaugh and these
I'm the
county
only
kids.
one that seems to
okay,
think it's-
finally.
If it happened
Okay, we only have
last
about
year.
60
I-
seconds. We've saved this topic for last, and that is the Time magazine has ranked St. Charles the #1 community in the state by far. It's number 32, 32nd best place to live in the nation. Wendy, Wiese, what do you make of them apples?
I think every dog has his day. I think that St. Charles. What's wrong with that?
that was good.
Thank you, Alvin. Thank you. I appreciate your support. I mean, so St. Charles over the years has done everything. It's been like the little train that thinks it can, and it finally made it to the top. It's above Lee Summit in Kansas City.
Well, it's 32nd, and Kirkwood, obviously, the fix was in against us, so that's all I could
yeah,
say. You know,
yeah,
hey.
absolutely.
Well, I'm sure the people in St. Charles are celebrating, and we hope you are.
The people whose homes are sliding into that lake out there, I like.
Off the Katy
one
Trail, yeah.
subdivision, and like other people don't have structural problems in their homes. Give me a break. Okay, let's go to the mailbag and see what you had to say about last week's program. Hi, gang. Wouldn't it make more sense to spend $800 million plus to buy every Metrolink rider a new car, which could possibly end the carjacking problem and boost the auto sales market all at the same time? That from John Gresco of St. Louis, Missouri. And we heard from Frank Medica of Maryville, who wrote, privatization of key public infrastructures and services. Ask the people of Genoa, Italy, what they think of their privatized bridge collapsed into rubble. And we heard from Dan Duncan of Calverton Park. Wendy mentioned New York's subway system. Bill mentioned San Francisco's subway system, bus system. One need go no further than across our state and look at what Kansas City has done with its new public transit system. We'd like to hear from you. Write us care of KETC, 3655 Olive Street, St. Louis, Missouri, 63108. Or you can save a postage stamp by emailing letters@ketc.org or tweeting #DonnybrookSTL, which Ray and I will read on your turn in just a matter of moments. Don't forget, we've got Donnie Bash next week, big live broadcast from the Sheldon. We hope you join us in person or certainly on the 9 Network. Don't go away.
Donnybrook is made possible by the members of the 9 Network.